Hello, it is Dr. Teresa Joyce here, occupational therapist and director of People's Occupational Therapy. And in this video, we are going to be considering how you can improve your university assignments. But first, let me tell you why I am qualified to be giving you this information. So, as an occupational therapist specializing in children and young people, I am interested in all the things that you need and want to be able to do. And for people of the age of 18 to 25, a large chunk of what you're wanting to do, often if you attend, is to go to university and to be able to write your assignments. So, that's why, as an occupational therapist, this is an area that I can support with. As well as being an occupational therapist clinically, I also am a researcher and a lecturer in occupational therapy as well. And therefore, I have fellowship with the Higher Education Academy. So, this gives me particular expertise to be able to talk on the subject of how you could be doing even better in your university essays. So, I have written down some of the questions that I get on TikTok that I feel like need a little bit more than a 3-minute video to discuss. And I think that they go really nicely together, which is why they're in the video together. So, the first question is, why are my assignments not making it past a 2-2? At this point, I would also like to preface this by saying I have expertise in occupational therapy. I know that this way of writing that I am describing is also relevant for many other subjects, but I can't speak specifically outside of my own discipline. So, if you are listening to this and you're not so sure about the transferability to your own subject, I would suggest going and asking your tutor afterwards whether this is something that is applicable to you. So, back to the first question of why are my assignments not making it past a 2-2? So, firstly, I would like to start by saying, what is a 2-2? So, a 2-2 is something that falls between a 50% and a 59%. And in the UK, this is classified as good. So, a lot of people are disappointed with getting a 2-2, and I'm not here to tell you what you should be disappointed or happy with. I'm here just to tell you the objective facts of what these mean. So, if you got a 2-2, you have objectively written a good piece of work. And what you're asking me is, how do I move away from good to get to very good? So, generally, when you're writing a good piece of work, it means that you have demonstrated that you have met the learning outcomes for that assignment and that you know enough information about the topic. You know a good level of information about the topic, and you're not really making any mistakes in your understanding of that information. So that's fantastic. What we want you to do to get from a 2-2 to a 2-1 is to move beyond just demonstrating your understanding by describing the things that you understand and to move towards showing some of the complexity that is involved there. And sometimes what's happening is students who are writing assignments that are getting 2-2s are doing all of this internal grappling and all of this critique inside of their head. And they're not putting it down on the paper. They're just putting down what they found out. They're not putting down their workings out, as it were. So, for a 2-1, you need to be showing us, for example, if you brought in a piece of research, why that piece of research is the piece of research that you brought in. Is it a very trustworthy piece of information? Why would it be a trustworthy piece of information? Is there another piece of information out there that might contrast to this piece of research that you're using? And why are you choosing to go with this approach and not this approach? If you start entering into these debates and you start explaining to us why you have created the argument and you've come to believe what you believe, then that is going to get you into a 2-1 first type category because you're starting to grapple with and show the complexity and you're actively showing your reasoning skills as well. You're not just showing that you've been able to take in information and recall it again. Related to this, another thing that we're often looking at for an assignment that's going to reach a 2-1 category is that the reading that you have done is starting to become broader than just the core reading that your lecturers might have presented you with or guided you towards whilst you were studying. So this is showing a breadth of your reading. Now, the second question I have is, why are my assignments not making it past a 2-1? So, this is essentially asking, what is the difference between a 2-1 and a first? So, as we've just said, in a 2-1, you're starting to show how complicated things are, that they're not as simple as they might seem. And you're starting to introduce some critique into what you're doing. And you're starting to read around the literature a little bit more. For a first, you're going to do that even more. So you are going to be critiquing more than once. You're going to show multiple places at which you're critiquing, and you're also going to make sure that your critique makes sense in the context of the rest of your assignment, and then it's well tied in together. So you might, for example, think about critique as just criticizing a paper. But if you're going to criticize a research paper and then hang that research paper in quite high esteem in relation to the argument that you're presenting, that's not going to get a first, because your reader and marker is going to be thinking, but why have you built your argument around this if you think it's not very good and you've now convinced me it's not very good? So, when you're aiming for first, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be making your critique make sense to everything else that you have said. So, you might, for example, still make a critique of that argument. So, you might, for example, or the paper that you've used. So, you might, for example, say that the sample size of this study was quite small and it only included students from university. But it might be that your assignment is actually a case study, and that in your case study, the person is a university student. So you might say, however, considering this, this is still a good piece of research to be using with this person. So you're not just leaving a critique hanging, you're bringing it in and tying it in with the rest of what you're saying. You're also going to show that you have done quite a lot of wider reading and you're bringing these things into your assignments. So it might be that when you are giving a point, so for example, here's a phrase that we see quite a lot, and the main difference that can occur from an assignment that's going to get a 2-2 and an assignment that's going to get a 2-1. So in a 2-2, you might have an assignment that says, it's widely known that ... And they might not do a reference. And I'll be a little bit like, oh, it would have been nice to see a reference there, because I'd like to know that it's widely known that this happened. If you are writing in a first class type way, then what you're going to do is you might say it's widely known that ... and then the reference there is going to be to a systematic review, which is showing that many other pieces of research have found this thing. Or you might have one or more articles showing that, so that we know that it's widely known. It's not just known by one person. So the third and final question that we will be addressing in today's video is, how do you fit everything in? So I've obviously just given you a lot to say in your assignment, and you're probably all like, Maya, but I've only got 2,000 words. I only have 1,000 words, whatever the amount of words is. And I understand. I really, really do, because I have had to write a PhD thesis, which is 100,000 words. And then I have had to summarize my PhD thesis from 100,000 words into, say, 10,000 words for one journal. The next journal wants 5,000 words. And then I also need to summarize it even further into 250 words for an abstract. So I get it, it's hard, we all hate it, but unfortunately, it's something we have to do. So here are some tips to fit all of the necessary stuff in to what you're doing and to get those great marks in your assignments. So, the first thing to say is the word count matters in relation to how much detail you go into everything you're discussing. So, if you think about my PhD thesis, my 100,000 word thesis, it was expected that I would go into quite a lot of detail on a lot of different areas. But when I had to condense that down to 5,000 words, that level of detail in those areas was not necessary. So what you need to do is think about what is non-negotiable, what needs to be in there so that what you're saying makes sense, and how can you describe something in as little words as possible. And the way that you can support yourself to do this is to read journal articles, not just to take in their content and expand your mind, but also to think about the writing conventions that they use. When they are discussing a journal article, how much detail do they provide? Because what you need to remember is you're providing a reference there so that your marker and your reader can go ahead and look up that article for any additional information that they might want. But you need to provide the core information so that they can follow the thread of what you're saying. I can't tell you exactly what that's going to be, but I can tell you some examples of some information that is generally not needed. So, often when I'm reading things that are full of very rich detail, but have run out of words to do any of this higher level grappling and critiquing, they are telling me where the study got ethical approval from. They're telling me if it's a questionnaire study, how many people got sent out the questionnaire, how many people got that questionnaire back. And I'm not saying that telling me how many people they sent out the questionnaire to and how many people got that questionnaire, how many people returned that questionnaire is necessarily a not important piece of information to put into your assignment. But if you present it in this way that is just descriptive, then you're not gaining the points that you could gain. So you could use exactly that same amount of words and you could tell me that same amount of information, but you can word it ever so slightly differently that actually you're getting points for critique. So think about, why do I want to tell them how many people sent back the questionnaire? That's me pausing so you can think about why that might be. Is it because you're trying to say that there might be a systematic difference between the people who returned the questionnaire and the people that did not return the questionnaire? And therefore, the people that returned the questionnaire might not be representative of everybody that they were trying to sample. That's a really good critique. Oh, that's fantastic. So rather than just saying this amount of people sent the questionnaire was sent out to, this amount of people sent it back, tell us a little bit about what that means. Use words such as like only this amount of people or however or this type of thing to show us, hey, this is important, pay attention to it, because otherwise it's just description and it's not necessarily important. So essentially, how to make your writing more concise is practice and ruthless discernment from yourself, and you could even give it to your friend that might help you. So thank you so much for watching. As always, please hit that like button and subscribe and let me know the types of things that you're interested in. I can do more university tips video. Again, as occupational therapist, I don't just need to talk about assignments. I can also talk about dealing with all of the other stuff that comes with the university. But also, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're an occupational therapist, I can talk about all of the ways that we work with children and young people in occupational therapy and how we can do our best to help everybody to participate in the things that are important to them and to thrive. So for now, goodbye.